You're listening to The Real Deal Conversations, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you by sharing real stories and meaningful conversations that bring real life to the surface. I'm your host, Megan Deal. Let's dive in. I am with Dr. Gearl Loden today, Superintendent of Nixa Public Schools, and I am so excited to talk with him on leadership and different things, embracing failure, leading with gratitude, self-leadership first, just different things that I really hope inspire, encourage, and equip you as listeners as we hear from Dr. Loden today.
And Megan, I'm excited to be with you today and just being on your show and being able to share.
I am so thrilled too. And I actually want to kind of get us started with leadership. So obviously you're in a leadership position, but you're also doing leadership coaching. And so there's something, everybody's why, I would like to believe, comes from a place of authenticity. And so what is your why in wanting to expand leadership and helping others grow and maximize their full potential?
Well, what I've learned in life is we're all leaders. And a lot of people will run from being a leader and they'll say, no, I'm not a leader. But if you have a family, you're a leader of your family. Even if you don't have a title, you may be a leader of a team or just a person everyone looks up to. Mm-hmm. And I've been blessed with a great career, love being in education, and being a superintendent of Nixa is a special job. Mm-hmm. It's a special part of my career. And you have 1,000 employees and all the kiddos and all the families. There's a lot of moving parts. But something that just connects with me is being able to help others. Mm-hmm. And I've been coaching teams and individuals for over 15 years in the education sector. Mm-hmm. And then a few years ago, I realized this, coaching people, working with people in leadership fills my bucket. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that. Just networking, connecting with people, helping people in a lot of different fields. And it's fun. It's exciting. And it's really, as I work with others, I realize we all have the same problems. It usually comes down to people and relationships, the fear that you have internally. Mm-hmm. So it's fun, and I enjoy it, and it's just nice to be able to give back.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I recently learned about you is, and what I respect it, is we share something, and that is ADHD, but then there's also dyslexia.
Oh yeah.
And so seeing you lead and at the capacity in which you lead and knowing that, I think is so encouraging and inspiring for others who think that is their setback, and to see you and go, it doesn't have to be my setback. So as a leader, how have you made that not your setback? How anybody else who is going, that's my struggle, what would you say to them to encourage them and they can go, man, if Dr. Loden can lead like he does, I can do this too?
Well, I think at times people have imposter syndrome and they try to be someone else. Early on, I'd love to read Joe Maxwell and others and be like, I want to be like them, but just be yourself. Mm-hmm. And we all have issues. There's things that we had, there's challenges, and they help to shape you. And if you embrace them, that makes a difference. Mm-hmm. I was a kiddo at school that, I'm old enough, I'm 55. Well, you didn't have the programs that we have today. Mm-hmm. So you're going into school and you're I'm in the generation just barely missed being forced to write with your right hand. I'm left-handed, colorblind, and didn't even realize, no one ever said you're colorblind. I just knew that kids would make fun of you in art because what looked good to me didn't look good to everyone else. Mm-hmm. And then the dyslexic. And then later on in life, finding out I'm ADHD. Mm-hmm. But I've embraced it. I see things in a different way, connect the dots in different ways, and it's helped me to be able to see things that maybe others don't see or see them in a different way and shape things in a different way. And I've used that all throughout my career. Mm-hmm. A funny thing is both of my sons are ADHD and dyslexic. And my oldest said a couple of times at school in Nixa, people be like, well, they don't care. I'm dyslexic. They don't care about dyslexic kids. Mm-hmm. My son's like, do you realize my dad's dyslexic? I'm dyslexic. My brother's dyslexic. Mm-hmm. I believe there's a care for people that have dyslexia. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that it gives you a greater sense of empathy and understanding on a level that not every school leader can have. And it's on a level of personal level, not just studying and understanding. So I really appreciate that. Okay, let's kind of go on. So in leadership, what is something that failure has taught you, and what is a personal experience, story that people can relate to that you had to learn from in failure that kind of helps shape some of your leadership today?
Well, I would say just going back to school and the struggles I had early on and trying to connect the dots and figure out how to learn. And then once I figured out that I learned in a different way, then I've been able to use that successfully. But with the teams that we have, just encouraging people to not be afraid to take risk, not be afraid of failure, trying to have an organization where when you make a mistake that's a calculated risk and things don't work out, let's learn from it, let's grow from it. Even if things work out, well, reflect it. How can we make things better for the next time?
And what would you say, because sometimes, for people who are in the spotlight, if they're in a leadership role that is looked upon by many, how would you encourage them with their failures or mistakes, or however you want to word it? Cause I think somebody told me the other day, they said, I don't want people to know my mistakes. I don't want them to. And I said, but that's what can also encourage and inspire people, depending on how you handle it. It's what can help others connect and see that, okay, if this is what he did and this is how he handled it, I don't think it's a bad thing for all of our mistakes to be made public. I don't. So what would you say for people who are in a public role of leadership, who are withholding because they're so afraid of making a mistake and it just being blasted everywhere?
I would say even if you don't make a mistake, it's going to be blasted.
Yeah.
No, just be yourself, make good decisions, make reflective decisions, use the information you have that's the best information you have, rely on your team, and make decisions that with the information you have that are the best. And there's times, just like on a Saturday morning, it's easy at the coffee shop to question the coach and why he called a play. Well, I bet the coach on Friday night, if he had known the play wasn't going to work, would have called something else. Well, there's times where you'll have all the information and things will shift. You'll be going in one direction. You'll have everything focused. You'll have all your resources. You'll have a new program in, and then the state comes in and changes something and says you've got to go in a different direction. Well, then you have to calm things down and explain to your team, okay, we said this is the direction we're going, but now we have a mandate that we need to go in a different direction. Well, that kind of deflates people when you're all bought in. You've got the culture set and the stage set for change, and then you're going in a different direction. That's part of my job, is just the instability you have where there's constant change, and lots of things from January to May always been talked about that are going to change. Most of them never change, but a lot of people get so overwhelmed by just the fear of change.
And how do you navigate those conversations so that it moves forward?
Just staying grounded, staying focused on what really matters, not worrying about the things that you can't control. And the behind the scenes, having some contingency plans, like if this does pass, what will we do? What would it look like? Well, what's something that we can take from this that we can go ahead and do that we need to do anyway, just in case we can be better, even if it never happens.
That's good. So resilience, tough moments. How would you encourage a leader in a very tough moment? All eyes are on them, even if it's not in the public, but their staff. They're all looking to the leader. And how would you encourage modeling resilience in those tough moments? What's some do's and don'ts?
Well, I think one of the best learning opportunities is after the fact, when you can share the rationale, the thinking, the processes, so people can learn how you process. Is if you're a principal on the line, it's action, reaction. Something happens and you react. At my level, most of the time, you're going to have a little time to think. So you can talk to your team, you can look at, check in with others or whatever, but at the end of the day, when you make the decision, you own it. If it goes well, you're going to receive more credit than you deserve. If it goes bad, you're going to receive more credit than you deserve. But don't be afraid to make decisions. You can't rely on opinion polls to make decisions. And there's times where, as a leader, you just have to make the decision. There are very few times where you just are top down and making a decision, but there's a couple of times as a soup where I've had to say, this is the direction we've got to go. And you just use some of the credits you have in the bank with others, and and they align with you, and you move forward.
I saw this quote the other day, and it said, if you don't like being misunderstood, then leadership is going to be very uncomfortable for you. And and here, two things. I'm going to say two things to that. I do think it is true. It is going to be very uncomfortable if you don't like being misunderstood, with like what you had said. Sometimes just you have to make decisions. You just have to make a decision. But then the second thing when I saw that quote was, I don't like being misunderstood. But I think how you navigate that is really what matters. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like, but it's not going to stop me from doing what I need to do, And so I think I appreciate that you said sometimes just as a leader, you have to make a decision. That just is what it is. And whether it's going to make people upset or not, and you're just having credit with, And so I appreciate that you said that. But with a action and reaction, like you said, in your position, you have more time. You have more time to kind of think. Not everybody does. One of your principles, it's the action reaction. What conversation would you have? What mindset would you give them so that in the moments, on a dime, on a quick, they're able to make the right reaction? So what is something that you would say to set them for success, or anybody, not just in the school system, if they are somebody who is in a position where they don't have a lot of time to think things through? How would you equip them for that?
W. Evans Deming, who was TQM, had a saying that 95% of the issues you have are your processes, not your people. Mm-hmm. And the more that you have good processes in place, the more you have clarity around the processes, the people understand the interpretations of the processes and what results look like or what actions look like according to your procedures and processes. Then when you're in a situation where it's, I've got to make a decision now, you've kind of been trained, you're prepared, and you can act.
Yeah.
That's why, like with us, with their drills, you practice, because when there's a situation, you want to know what to do and automatically do it.
So if somebody is struggling with their reactions and what's going on in the outcomes, would you say a good thing to do would be to go back and look at their processes?
I would say look at your processes, look at how you think internally. I mean, if you, like an athlete, your best athletes don't think they react because they've been trained, they know what to do. They see this, they automatically do it. But when you practice something enough, it becomes natural. You're not thinking about it, you just do it. Now, there's another type of person, though, you have to coach at times where they can tell you all day long what they're supposed to do, but then they freeze, they overthink. And that's, like with us with coaching, there may be someone that would be a great instructional coach, but then you put them in a leadership role where you've got everything coming at you, they may not be able to handle it. Or then again, with just some good coaching, they can. But you have to know yourself. You have to know how you respond in different situations. And if you're the type of person that overthinks or freezes up, you've got to have the courage to go through that, lean into the discomfort. But most people, if you have good procedures, processes, you understand it, they're onboarded correctly, they understand what's expected, they're going to do it.
And how would you, so somebody who does freeze up, somebody who isn't, how would you coach them through that?
That's going to be just some coaching conversations. What happened? What were you thinking in the situation? Looking to see if there's something in the past that's happened that causes them to pause. Looking if it's just the overthinking. Then try to put them in some scenarios where it's non-threatening, but you have to make a decision and get them, keep going so they don't freeze up. Or then again, they may not be able to work through that. Then you got to figure out where they need to be on the team where they can be successful, but they don't have to be in that situation.
I had the other day, so at the coffee trailer, I had a new employee, and I had them in one position for it first, and it was, I could tell their confidence just needed being built. It's a young kid. And so I thought, okay, let's just move him to this position to build his confidence in having a first job, build his confidence, and then we'll work towards this. And it was just redirecting, finding a new, but I'm going to ask another question. So it doesn't, this isn't for my situation, but just in general. So you find a place where they can grow their confidence, where they can work through that at a level that is easier to build up. If they can't, how would you, I'm actually asking personally for like future to put in my pocket for the future. How would you dismiss them? Like, how would you have that conversation? Genuinely asking. I don't love to hurt people's feelings. So how would you have that conversation with somebody? You've coached them. It's still not working. How would you have that conversation? I am 100% putting this in my pocket for the future.
Well, you try to use a situational model where I may be a little more managerial at first until I get to know you, but I want to figure out what you're good at, what you like, and make sure that I have you in your talent zone. When I'm coaching people, I tell them, I say, if you've got to be, and you got to have your teammates in a position where 70% of the time they're in their zone. Now, 30% of the time we all just have to suck it up. There's things we have to do. But if you have employees that the majority of the time they're not in their talent zone, they're doing things that they're not good at, or just because you're good at it doesn't mean it fills your bucket. And so you've got to have them where they're in a comfort zone. If you can't get someone in that domain where they're happy, they like what they're doing, they're enjoying their job, then once you start coaching, you just keep it simple. Focus on a few things, coach them on it, make sure you're watching them, then you leave them. Well, if you had to keep coming back and they're not getting it done, then that's when you can do your 3 steps. Look, it's just not working. What I've learned is, and we're dealing with humans, there's been times where I've had difficult conversations and the person's relieved. They know it's not a good fit. There's been some other times where I thought this is going to be an easy conversation, and the person makes a mountain out of a molehill and gets mad over nothing. And you're just like, I'm just giving you some feedback here on what we need for you to do.
Yeah.
But most of the time, if you're not seeing the results, they're going to know they're not good at what they're doing. They're not in their zone, and they're okay with it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm tucking that away. Because I don't really have to do it yet, but as a business owner now, I know in the future it's coming. So I'm like, okay, how can I have my mind?
And if you're a steady boss and you're this, not Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you're the same person every day and you're coaching them, and they're going to get it. After 3 or 4 times of not being able to do the certain task right, they're going to know.
Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, so leading with gratitude. What are some daily habits that you use to stay grounded in gratitude? And I think this goes with what we were talking about with failure, because when you embrace failure and you can be thankful for what you learn in the failure, I think failure has a whole new meaning and it's easier to navigate. And so let's move into gratitude and being thankful. And what are some ways you stay grounded in it?
Well, just going back to the whole, before I go personally, just thinking about gratitude, when you're looking at an organization with gratitude, with just being thankful, with communication, any organization, if you pay a pro to come in from out of town and they come in with a suit and they've got a briefcase, they could leave and say you have communication issues. And I like to talk about what I call the platinum rule. When I meet you, I want to use the golden rule and treat you the way that I would like to be treated. But I need to figure out really how you like to be treated. The way I'm motivated, the way I like to be recognized, you may be totally the opposite. But when it comes to communication, like in Nixa, we've got over 1,000 employees. There are going to be a handful that say, no one appreciates me. They don't care about me. But we've got so many programs and things in place just trying to be at the ground floor, just having fun in the buildings, being serious about educating children, but having an environment where you work in teams, you share together, you learn together and grow together. And if we can figure out how the people like to be motivated, what they like, what they don't like, we may do 5 things. There may be 2 of them that you're like, I just don't like it. But at the end of the day, I'd hope you'd find things that you like. And then could say they appreciated me. We do some simple things that are very simple, like we call it payday birthday, but on payday, we say anyone's got a birthday this month, we have little cookies that are made that are nice cookies. Well, the first time I did that, I got this hateful letter from a teacher about how they weren't healthy and we need to have healthy options. I'm like, oh, good Lord, come on. So we made sure to have fruit after that, too, the cookies. But that really helps me to see, though, you want to have a variety of things that connect so people know you care. And you want to respond, even though I'm like, what? Just eat the cookies. We added the fruit, too.
Yes.
But just being thankful. We all have a bottom line, like with your coffee business, you've got to make money or you can't stay in business.
Right.
Well, the schools, our community expects us to have safe environments. They expect us to be very strong academically, but then they want us to be super competitive in everything. If we have a bus to pull up and it's the choir, if it's the band, if it's the football team, if it's the debate team, they expect the Nixa kids to be well behaved, well coached, and do well. We may not win everything, but you're going to be in the hunt. Well, there's a lot of pressure there because it's not like you're a football school or a band school. You're everything. So we look at that and we want to know that we keep it balanced, that yes, we have our end results where we're going to be good, but then would you rather be in an environment where your boss is worried about the numbers and being good, or would you rather be in an environment where your boss is grateful, your team's grateful and thankful you're there, and that energizes you when you're appreciated. So to me, that helps people to go the extra mile.
I appreciate that. That's kind of like with my employees. It's the most important thing. Yes, we have to make sales to run, but the most important thing to me is how are people treated? How are people treated? And how are they? Because you just never know when they come through that window. You don't know what their morning was. You don't know what they're walking into for their day. And if that one interaction can just be the little bit of kindness that they needed, and appreciation that they needed. And I feel like that. I feel like everything, if you treat people well, if you treat people how you want to be treated, I feel like everything else just kind of comes together with it. It just naturally, organically is going to do right.
And what's sad, I've worked with some people that are like SaaS folks or entrepreneurial away from education, and it's like they're doing well, they're growing. And I think at times people neglect in scaling or adding service lines, thinking about the cultural fit or having a system where when you on board, you're teaching that culture. Even if you have a 5 to 10% turnover rate, when 5 years, a quarter to half of your people are out. So if you've had all this training, you need to make sure, okay, our newbies need to understand the core essence of the training we had 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. But then we've all experienced this, especially in the SaaS world, when people developing software. You've got a tool you love. The company merges with another company, and they put the label on, but the things don't integrate. The old customers get mad. The new customers get mad. And it's like, and then you hear bad things about the company where the service goes down. So sometimes I think you're going to make more money by having a good culture and scaling the right way than just buying things up and not thinking about the cultural fit.
Which for me, okay, just like personal speaking right now, so I'm kind of I get nervous, like I'm about to start stepping away and letting the staff so that I can focus on all the other things that I'm doing. I'm not going to walk away. I mean, I'm still going to be coming in and out. But I do get, because I have such a high standard in how we treat people. And so I start to I'm like, oh, and so do you ever, and I don't want, like if one of my employees, I always say, like, if you're having a bad day, you have to leave it at the door. You have to. If you want to vent to me. If you want to, whatever, but at the door, it has to go because we have to give our best to the people coming through. And so what would you say to somebody like me who's a little bit of a control freak on making sure our standard is always, and then being a little anxious of, okay, if I go on vacation, and I am not there, I don't want to micromanage. I do not want to be a micromanage boss. But I also have that anxiety of, is everybody, but my team is great, but there's still that anxiety there. So what would you say to somebody like me who wants the culture to stay as is consistently, but also doesn't get to control that?
Well, I think that's a difficult thing, especially when someone starts a group, a business, they know how they want it, and then they often they'll burn out because they don't let go. But as you onboard, and one of the benefits is cross-training your folks, so you have multiple people know how to do the jobs. Having some of your veteran people have been with you to kind of be the ones that monitor the culture, monitor the customer service. Add in the feedback loop so you can understand if customers are happy or not, if they've had a bad experience. And jumping on that if they're having negative experiences or if the place is not clean or just the little things. And then I would encourage don't just say, oh, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks. But take some longer weekends, take some little trips, have some days where you're not there just to see how things go without you, and build that capacity. And two, just having some KPIs so you know on a scorecard what things should look like.
And it's not, and I want everybody to know, I have really great staff. I love my staff. We're very like family oriented culture. We're about to go on a boat outing in a couple weeks as a team builder. So I want everybody to know that. I'm just saying I'm big on being proactive, not reactive. And so I'm like, okay, I can tell this is going to be a weak spot for me when I start to walk away. I'm going to start going. And so I'm asking Doc so that I can be proactive, not reactive. I want y'all to know I have great staff.
and see, I look at that though. Like I started out working for the same gentleman for like 12 years in high school through college, and when he got to where he needed a break, and he and his wife could go off for a weekend in Asheville, a long weekend or whatever, and they'd leave the store with me. And I'm like, okay, he trusts me. So I was going to make sure I didn't let him down because I wanted him to trust me. There's people like that still that are employees.
Yeah.
There's a competition for them, and we can look around. You can see, without naming a lot of places, but you can look at the ones that have it down and have it right, and the ones that don't.
Yeah.
I think everybody likes Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
Customer service there. Our 7 Brews here in town are just, it's amazing how they train the young college kids that are working there and how to talk to you, and just, you feel special. They're asking you how your day is. What are you doing today?
Yes. No, they do. They're really good with that. Yeah. So, okay. So what is the connection between gratitude and long-term performance?
Well, I think if you're grateful, that's going to help out in so many ways. And one simple thing I like to work with the clients that I work with is we all have our fears. And when we're born, it's loud noises and falling. The rest we all learn. Most people spend 80% of their time worrying about things that will not happen. And you think about all the times you've worried, or something might happen in a lighter version. It's not like a catastrophe is happening. Well, when you look at that and you're thinking about fear of failure, catastrophe, in the same part of the brain where you have fear is the same part of your brain where you have gratitude. You cannot have both at the same time. If you'll just simply and this sounds like, at first, if you're not into any of the meditation, mindfulness things, you're like, I'm not doing that, Doc. I was the same way. And my personal coach said, you've got to try this. So if I get frustrated, I'll just think of little things like, I'm just thankful it's beautiful out today. It's been raining today. It's beautiful. I got to see my family this morning. I just think of things I'm grateful for. It doesn't have to be fancy. You will see or feel your mind shifting because you can't have the fear. And my coach personally said, 10 gratitudes, 10 authentic gratitudes, and you won't have the fear. And that's so truthful. So I try to end and begin my day with just things, a little reflection time. And you could say prayer, meditation, reflection, journaling. I'm not the best at journaling, but I just try to end my day with the celebrations. What worked well? What did what challenge did I have that I had to take on first thing that went very well compared to what it could have? And just appreciate what I have.
And just taking control of your mind.
Yep. It's so easy to get in a mode of where you're negative. And I'll coach someone that's not a faith or a different religion, but I think the core essence when I know someone's a Christian is I'm going to say you have your body and you have your mind, and your mind's going to think dumb things and plant negative seeds. But then you have that spiritual side where you can control your mind and say, no, we're not going to think that, and let it go.
Yep. That's what I speak. So anxiety or fear, anything, I'll speak scripture to it. I will, just like David in the Bible, he commanded his soul to worship. He commanded it. And it's the same thing. It's like what you just said. There's our thoughts, they're all over the place. They're so made up of environment and all the things and what your brain is just attached to because of what it's heard. And also why, and I'm going to add this is also why it is so important to be so careful what you're watching, what you're listening to music-wise, what you're listening to friendship-wise, and who is in your circle.
Oh, amen.
Because the things that your brain, even if you are not aware, it is still attaching itself subconsciously to what is going on around. And so I will, if I'm in a season of stress, if I'm in a season of worry, I will play worship music on repeat so that I just constantly am feeding my brain what it needs to hear. And so I think that's so important, like what your circle of people and all the things. I'm kind of digressing, but
No, you're not. This is good.
Oh yeah. But my point being is I will speak scripture to it. I will, and sometimes guys, sometimes you're going to have a thought and it's going to come back 10 times that day. Speak to it 10 times that day. Speak to it every single time. There was a season, it was like a couple weeks where I just had so much that I was worried about. And so I put the scripture that I spoke to it as the background on my phone so that every time the thought would come, I would just pull up my phone and just speak that scripture to it. Because I think some people get confused with, well, I must not be doing it the right way if the thought comes back a bunch of times. Well, the thought comes back, I mean, especially if you're somebody who has like looped thoughts, my thoughts go on loop. It's just part of anyway. And so don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged if you have to speak to it 10 times that day. You didn't do something wrong. You're taking control of it 10 times.
Like, you can plant seeds like whatever you do, don't think about the Coca-Cola white polar bear drinking a Coke. You're instantly, I don't need to be thinking that way. You're thinking more. And that's why what some of the old researchers said, they could end depression in 70% of people would just get up and go and help others and stop feeling sorry for themselves. And I'm not saying I'm a psychologist, a psychiatrist, but just being able to appreciate what you have, stay grounded, keep moving, take your setbacks with stride and learn from them, and realize everyone has weaknesses. And too, if you're not sleeping, if you're overstressed, then you have an event in your family, someone dies or a kid gets hurt, or you can really spiral. But once you get the positive momentum going, then you can just build on it.
Yes, that is so true. Gratitude is powerful. It's so powerful. And the words you speak, man, they have power.
Piggybacking off something you said, I don't believe the average person realizes that only 5% of what we do is in our conscience. 95% is in the subconscious. So
I had no idea.
There's so much. And like one strategy that I've had several people, and I can go over a lot of different time management things, and I have to really worry about that because I'm ADHD. But one simple strategy is just to simply write. I always say, even if you're an early bird, make sure when you leave your office, you're done. You've got everything ready, because things can happen at night or in the morning. But if you leave and you're ready for the next day, there's clarity so you can go home and be present. But before I leave, I want to look at my calendar one last time. What are the big things I've got tomorrow? Then before I go to bed, I'm going to mentally just play over for a few minutes. First meeting tomorrow, second meeting. Try to make sure the big stuff, I'm going to have them first thing, the bigger meetings. But I'll run through that. So then when I go to bed, I'm not worried about, am I ready for the next day? But I'm kind of letting it saute. Here's what happens. Then when I first get up, I'm going to glance at the phone calendar one more time. And it's okay. I've got Megan today. Okay, it's going to be after lunch. It's going to be a fun meeting. I've got this other meeting. This is kind of your time of year having more fun meetings.
Yeah.
But you just go through that. And that helps you to have a lot of clarity. And I think that helps for you to also have success leaves clues. So if you're having good meetings and you're having success, you're reflecting on it, it's going to help you to have better days.
Yep. Time management's one of mine too. And I've learned to compartmentalize so that in the evenings I am present, but I had to make some decisions, stepping away from full-time at Big Brothers Big Sisters so that I can manage everything within a 40-hour work week. But I'm going to add what you did and just doing a quick recap before bed and in the morning. I think that'll help me because otherwise I'm kind of sometimes going, okay, what do I have to do? And I'm not compartmentalizing that very well. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And so I think that is a good addition to just before bed and then in the morning. And then that way I don't have to worry about it throughout the day of what am I doing? Because that's where I'm bad with time management is, okay, what do I have in an hour? I'm not organized. So if I can get better at organization, it would be so helpful for me. But okay, so self-leadership. It is, leading others while neglecting yourself. This is this is important because you can't pour from an empty cup. And I know everybody hears that saying, but it is so true. I recharge in the quiet, which is probably very shocking to people because I'm always yapping. I'm always talking. Making friends fills my cup. Seeing people fills my cup. But I don't recharge with that. That's not what fuels me. Quiet, decompressing, a calm space is what is going to recharge me to do that. And if I don't do that, I'm not going to be at my best. So what is your, what do you have to say on pouring from an empty cup? What is your encouragement to people on that?
Just we're all responsible for ourselves. And if we're going to lead, we have to lead ourselves first. And the hardest person you'll ever lead is the person in the mirror. And we all have our issues. No one's perfect. And there's a lot of different strategies. So, you could look, and Dr. Loden could give you a strategy. It may work or may not. But the main thing is being able to look at yourself and kind of audit yourself. Where do I want to spend my time? How am I spending my time? And it's so easy to get busy, and some people love to stay busy, and often that can be an avoidance way. I'm busy, so I'm adding value that I'm busy, but then you're not really taking care of yourself, or you may be not taking care of your family, but you're taking care of others. I mean, it's different for different people. But looking at when do you strive or thrive, not strive, but when do you thrive? What charges your batteries? Like with me, I like the quiet. I've got to have it. I just like having time to reflect, time without the technology, time with just being able to think. That's when I have often my creative ideas. Or time just to talk to people I trust and kind of walk through things. Just, really may not want you to solve my problems, just listen.
Yeah.
I'm working on something. I just need somebody to listen and ask a few questions. So something that's very powerful about hearing yourself talk through things. I'll use the Strengths Finder with a lot of folks, and they've already had it a million times, but when you have them to walk you through it and teach you their Strengths Finder, and you ask questions, they leave every time saying, I've never had it like this before. But because they're having to teach me their strengths and their weaknesses, and then asking probing questions, is very powerful. So just what charges your batteries? And realizing, too, there's times where people will do things, and they're educated and they're smart, but there's a secondary underlying benefit, and it could be a negative benefit. Like how many times do organized folks, they're at work every day on time, they're always everywhere on time, but they cannot, to save their lives, be at church on time. And it may be the kid that's really dragging around, and they know they're going to get in trouble, but they want attention because during the week they're not getting the attention they want. Or an adult doing the same. We're just like little kids.
I self-reflection, you had mentioned that, and I think that's so important. So important. And it's one of my if I am big on self-reflecting, and I don't know if it's the high achiever in me that's constantly trying to tweak, but I think it's so important. And if something isn't going right, if something isn't going well, to self-reflect and evaluate ourselves. And I think that's intimidating, because that means that we may find something that we don't like and that maybe we're not doing to our best. And that can be hard. But I would encourage you, even though uncomfortable, it is uncomfortable, self-reflection on what could I be doing better? What am I not doing well enough that is affecting my family, my kids? It is uncomfortable, and it can be an icky feeling sometimes. But if you can sit through it long enough to get to the root and find a better solution, it's worth it. And I think it'll be, like for me, again, time management. And I really had to self-reflect where, because one of my personal things was, at the end of the day, I was present, but I wasn't present. So I was at the house, but I was like, gosh, I just want to be doing something else. I had energy stored up, and my kids weren't getting the best of mom. My husband wasn't getting the best of Megan. And so I really had to self-reflect and go, where are my priorities right now that at the end of the day, I'm not able to be present? And then I had to do a big shift. I had to do a major shift. And now I'm able to be present because I went, okay, my kids said this. It was one thing. I'll be real with you guys. So I had done something a couple of years ago. I ran for something, and the what people were saying about me was eating me. And I wasn't saying anything like to the public. I wasn't saying anything. I was keeping it. But behind closed doors, I was just like, but that's not me. They're saying this, and that's not who I am, and da-da-da-da-da. And I wasn't able to be present because I was consumed. And so I really had to self-reflect and go, okay, is this worth it? You know, and that was an icky feeling to hear my kids go, Mom, you're not here, you know, and that was an icky feeling. But I think self-reflection is so important, and sitting in that and going, what can I do better next time? How can I do differently? Anyway, and so I'm still going to have to keep doing that, but now I'm able to be present. Now I'm able to be mom and wife when I'm home, nights and weekends and all the things. So I would encourage you guys to sit in the ick for a little bit and know that it's going to lead to a solution and a better outcome if you can just kind of bear it. You know what I mean?
And in situations like that, that's when it's good. If you don't have an official coach, having some good mentors and people who have been through it, because, you know, we'll see that with new teachers or principals. 95% of our people in our community are very satisfied, but you've got a handful that are just negative. And here this teacher is 23, and the parent's just all over them. And they haven't even really made a mistake. Or they've made a mistake and own it, but the parent won't let it go. Or with us, you know, you're going to be criticized. I don't go to the Nixa neighbors and other places because they're always going to be someone mad about the schools, and we're not transparent, or we don't care. But you got to realize there's always the critics, and they're always going to be out there. And there's times where you do make mistakes. You're like, well, we deserve that criticism, and we'll learn from it. But like for your listeners, no one's perfect. I mean, I've struggled with different things here too, like one of the greatest gifts you can give someone, and people that meet with me know I take notes all the time. I'm like, if I'm taking notes and I'm asking questions, you know I'm listening. But then when my wife's talking about her job, I'm not taking notes. And I'm like, there's times where I'm like, okay, I was not present like I should have been with my own spouse. This is my family, so I can work 60 plus hours a week in my career, but then I'm not present like I need to be at home. Or we'll schedule everything, but then we don't schedule our own things. So we've had to evolve at home, and we do much better now. And just growing and maturing.
Yes. And when you said, having a coach if you don't have a coach, but understanding that other people have experienced it too and gone through, I think it's so powerful. It's one of the top ways that I actually get through in a situation is by calling up somebody, like with the business, new business. I'll call a friend who is a small business owner, and I'll say, this happened. Did you experience that? And when she says, oh yeah, I totally experienced that, all of a sudden, like, there's a weight lifted of, I'm not alone. Like, there's so much power in knowing you're not alone and going, oh, you experienced that too? I am now encouraged and not defeated. I am now maybe a little stressful still, but it's like, okay, they got over that hump. I can get over that hump too. And so just like Doc said, even if you don't have a coach per se, finding people who are ahead of you in whatever it is you're doing and going, did you experience it? It's for me, it's a game changer. It's why one of the reasons I have the podcast is to bring awareness to things for other people to go, oh, they experience that too.
And there are a lot of people. I love when I do have an opportunity to work with like someone that's had a dream. Now they have a small business. Well, all of a sudden it's like, I didn't know about all the managing people or all the social media or all the other things. Well, there's plenty of people that have been on the same journey.
Yes.
But I would say, like, when you're scaling, if you wait until it's perfect, you're waiting too late. But being able just to look at the KPIs or the triggers, because you don't want your team all running at maximum potential. You want everyone to be producing, but then have that time for the reflective time and the time to really connect. In education, I always say we need about 20% of your time is white space, because there's going to be some of it filled up by emergencies, but you got to have some time just to think. If not, you're just in the day-to-day and you never think about the next quarter, the next year, and you've got to be able to constantly be able to think about what's coming and stay ahead of it.
Yes. And okay, so You said at maximum potential. So what do you kind of mean by that? You said not to be at maximum potential, but
you want to know this. You want to know, like, if I'm working, I want to make sure I'm making you money. I want to go deliver the goods. But if I'm there and I'm grinding every day and I'm in a semi-leadership role of influence, and I never have time to contribute in other ways, I'm going to burn out. I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
I'm going to do something else. But if I'm able to, like if I've got a director, someone that's over a department, I want them to have some time to be able to network with the department. Now, like, I can't say be in the buildings all the time, because if you want to be in the buildings all the time, teacher, be a principal. But we need to be visible. We need to be around. But then we've got all the planning for the next year. Like, we'll be planning, closing out one year, opening up another year, doing the long-term planning, look at long-term master plans. We've got to have time to do that. And it's so easy to get so bogged down in the day-to-day that you're not thinking about, okay, we need to make sure we've got our systems updated. Because, like, I don't think people realize, but like in the schools, we can tell you how old every air conditioner is, when they need to be replaced, every roof, every bus. And then you're making decisions based around a limited pot of dollars. I mean, we are in the top 2% in the state academically. But what people don't realize is on a really good year, we're in the bottom 15% financially for what we spend per child. We're so blessed on Nixa because our bonds, our community supports our bonds. And yes, we'll have some big projects, but a lot of them are just, here's a new roof on a building, here's new air conditioning. And now with inflation, it's all gone up. But so you've got to be able to work hard and add value, but you've also got to have some time for research and development and creative thinking too, especially in a learning environment like the schools. And now with all the change that we have, I mean, your budgets are the same. You know how much AI costs. If you think about trying to scale something system-wide, you know, we're trying to stay ahead. Our kids need to have a different set of skills that are going to, for them to be successful in the future.
Yes. And okay, so let's kind of go to, you know, speaking of kids being successful in the future, bridging generational gaps in leadership. So we are preparing the next generations, but there is a gap. I mean, just working with you, I mean, there's such a difference. And so how would you, somebody who is, so I'm 37 to 50, and then working with the kids who are coming, you know, 18, early 20s, there's a totally different mindset. And I'm not going to say, I don't love when people go, it's the entire age group, because I know rock stars who are 18 years old. I know rock stars who are, you know, early 20s, but there is a gap there in some instances. And so how would you, like, one person told me, my generation doesn't see the need to work. And I said, well, how are you going to pay your bills? And this person said, well, you just, you know, you get a good collection. You get a collection and you sell that collection. And I don't process that. I just smiled and nodded and just thought, this is odd. So
there's lots of things like are you familiar with the FIRE culture? It's where you live very frugally and work and save, but as soon as you get enough that you can just not work, you stop working. Maybe you got $200,000 and you live in just a hut, and it's just a different mindset.
Yes.
But now that's the extremes. Going back to the platinum rule, if I'm a supervisor, I'm going to have people that accept others. And I want to take advantage of the older generation or the boomers, that they're going to be there and they're going to work hard and they're not going to miss. But I have to understand too, with the younger generation, they've been brought up that if you go to the doctor, you just don't take the doctor's word for it. You ask questions. You want to know why. I mean, that's the way they've been brought up. This next group coming on, the Z's, they want to have kind of independent, like an X, but also they want to know they're serving a purpose, making a difference. So that's where you have that culture of your why. And as a leader, I've got to blend it. I'll have one group that they want you to talk to them face to face. I'll have one group that email's fine. Another group that email and talking to you is old school. I want to hear it a different way. And I think too, though, being able not being afraid to have difficult conversations where I've got these guys here that are 60 years old and they're working all the time. But I think with them being able to see their grandbabies and do things, what if I do give them the work from home option? But what if I flip it for the younger ones who want to work from home or used to being on the phone and saying, you've got some leadership potential, but I need you in here. I need you being in the culture where you're learning how to work in teams and with others. I know you can work virtually, and there may be a day where I free you up and you can lead a virtual team. But right now, I'd like for you to get the experience of working with some other people. But all the generations have a lot of good things, and there's good people in all the generations. And then there's others where you do have some young people that just don't want to work. But you have some older people that burn out that need to retire that can't. They're just there every day because they have to be. But I think if you've got a good environment and you understand how they like to be motivated, young group that don't have a lot of money, they may be motivated. They make their numbers by getting a trip because they don't have the money. Whereas someone else that's older may just want a few days off just to be at home, some flex time.
And how would you, team culture, you have a older generation, younger generation, and they're clashing because the mindsets are different. How would you have a conversation to build unity between the two while recognizing, and I'm asking for myself because I'm a little black and white here on this, where I just feel like we should, I'm a hard worker and I kind of feel like I'm judging that generation. So how would you build unity between the two while still respecting the two mindsets that come with the generation? How would you have that?
I think especially if you're in a small organization, just talking to your employees. What do you like? What do you not like? Trying to find things that they have in common that you can do. Also, having some conversations when you have conflict. Now, look, you guys have got to work together, and you may like a text and you may like face-to-face, but you're going to have to do both at times. You can't have it all both ways. Just getting people to work together. Now, I'm talking about just in general jobs. I'm not talking about something where there's only one standard operating procedure, and if you don't do it right, people are going to get hurt. You don't want to go in for a routine surgery and the surgeon get creative. But in most of the jobs that we have, there's certain procedures you have to follow, but then a lot of it is just the culture and having a culture that's a good fit.
And I want to because something else I want to touch on real quick before we wrap up, for some people who are experiencing this in their workplace, is you have somebody in leadership who is good at what they do. They are good at what they do, but they are struggling to see the bigger picture at the point in time. And they're struggling to see the bigger picture, but they're good at the operations that they're doing, but the growth is going to be limited. How do you navigate handling somebody in leadership like that? Because if they're good at what they do, you're like, well, I don't want them to go, but I also need them to see growth, but they're so comfortable at what they do that they're not seeing the growth. How would you manage that?
Well, if you have feedback conversations more than just the end of the year evaluation and you see they have a dream, I can take you, and like on our team, I'll have people in roles and I'm like, this is your job. You need to do it very, very well. But if I want to keep you fresh, if I have special projects now, and I know you don't have all these reports coming to you or things that we'll give, everyone on our teams had crazy projects that are not in their job description that they just love. It's something different. But if I identify someone that's like, I want to be a superintendent or I want to be an assistant sup, well, we can't hire everyone. Like we've got over 50 people, I believe, that have gone through Nixa U that have master's degrees that could be assistant principals or principals. Well, some of them are going to have to go away from Nixa. But if we provide them opportunities to shadow, to let them see the big picture and they learn and capture different ideas and things, or like on my cabinet, if we give them, rotate a few jobs out every few years so they have different things and help them to be more well-rounded, that's going to help them to be better leaders and see the big picture. Because it's easy to be really good at what you do, but not see the big picture. And I'll be the first to say we have a limited resources, so there's times where we'll evaluate, okay, we're going to do this, but we've got all these other people saying they need things too. And in a scope of about 5 to 7 years, you'll be able to say, wow, it's amazing what all we accomplished. Like with mental health. 7 years ago when I first arrived, one of the things I kept hearing is we need support. We didn't have a social worker. and we have one psychologist. Well, now we have, I believe the last time I checked, 14 borough FTEs. We have 3 social workers that we pay for. And then on top of that, we've added a second psychologist. So if you surveyed, they would say, we need more. But if you look at where we're at, so I have to keep it balanced. We made great strides, but we may need an SRO, or we may need another, nurse or whatever. So you just add things in layers and realize you've got to be patient. But over time, people look and go, wow, we've made a big difference. And that's why I'm being patient, playing a long game.
Yep. That's a word that my husband uses a lot. He's like, Megan, the long game. It's the long game. I'm like, oh yeah, that is true. I'm not a patient person. So he always reminds me, long game, Megan. So what would you say for people in leadership listening, for young leaders, for anybody who is just needing encouragement in this moment for leadership? What is one piece out of anything that you would want them to know, encouragement that you want to leave with them?
Leadership is fun. It's if you want to be a leader and you have the aptitude and you're willing to learn, it's ever changing. It's always moving, no matter what field you're in. The world's going at a fast pace. And if you think the world's fast today and complex today, it's going to get faster and more complex. You've got to embrace change and lean into it. As a leader, I like the Toyota mentality. They've never laid people off. So I always try to be lean and look out for my employees and look to the future. And then when there's a crisis situation, there are always opportunities. I mean, we gained so much ground during COVID when we came out of COVID. It's unreal.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate this conversation and everything that you had to say, and I appreciate you, and thank you for coming on.
I've enjoyed it.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.